The sun was beginning to set, casting an orange glow across the forgotten part of town. Nestled between towering, crumbling structures and a maze of narrow alleyways, the abandoned building sat in isolation, long forsaken by its original tenants. The walls were chipped, revealing layers of paint that had once been vibrant but were now faded and peeling. The floor was covered with years of dust, broken glass, and discarded debris. This part of the town was rarely visited, save for the occasional stray cat or the wind that whispered through the broken windows. Among the discarded remnants of what used to be a lively neighborhood, a small boy, no more than 6 years old, wandered laughing as he ran through the dimly lit hallways. He had been playing hide-and-seek with his friends, and this old building, long since abandoned by the rest of the world, was the perfect place to hide. His tiny feet scurried through the dusty space as he hid behind old crates, trying to stifle his giggles. But as he wandered deeper into the building, he felt a strange tug in his chest, a curiosity pulling him toward an area he hadn't yet explored. The boy's friends, no longer visible in the distance, had long given up on finding him. The laughter from the outside seemed so far away, as if the world beyond the walls had forgotten this place entirely. The building was quiet now, with only the faint rustling of wind and the distant hum of traffic to remind him of the life that still existed outside. But something else caught his attention, a soft, pitiful cry that seemed to come from deep within the building, echoing off the hollow walls. The boy's heart raced. The sound was unlike anything he had ever heard before. It wasn't the usual scurry of rats or the call of stray animals that roamed these empty spaces. No, this was something much more fragile, something in need of help. He tiptoed cautiously toward the noise, his small hand brushing against the cold brick walls as he navigated through the dim corridors. Each step he took seemed to make the cry louder, pulling him closer to the source. The boy's mind raced as he wondered what could be making such a sound in this forgotten place. It felt like an eternity before he reached the corner where the sound was coming from, his tiny heart beating faster with each passing second. As he rounded the corner, his eyes widened in shock. There, lying on the cold floor, wrapped in a frayed pink blanket, was a tiny baby. The baby's face was red and streaked with tears, its small limbs weakly flailing in distress. The boy froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. He had never seen anything like this before. A baby, alone and abandoned in a place so desolate. It didn't seem real. His mind raced as he wondered how the baby had ended up in this forsaken place, why no one had come to help, and how he could fix this situation. For a brief moment, the boy stood still, simply staring at the baby, unsure of his next move. He could feel the weight of the situation settling in his chest. He couldn't just walk away. Despite his young age, he knew instinctively that the baby needed help, and fast. His tiny hands gently reached for the baby, and he carefully picked the infant up, holding it close to his chest. The baby's cries softened as the boy whispered comforting words, even though he wasn't sure if the baby could understand him. He looked around for any sign of others, someone, anyone, who could help, but the building remained eerily silent. With the baby in his arms, the boy's next step was clear. He had to get out of there. Despite the overwhelming uncertainty and fear, he made his way back toward the entrance of the building. His heart raced as he moved quickly, the baby's tiny weight pressing against his chest. The cries had stopped, but the boy knew that he couldn't rest until he found the baby, the help it desperately needed. The boy, still shaking from the shock of finding the abandoned baby, knew that he couldn't wait around for someone else to come along. he had to act quickly. Despite his small frame and the weight of the responsibility that pressed down on him, there was no hesitation in his heart. The baby needed help, and he was the only one there to offer it. With a soft but steady grip, the boy cradled the baby carefully in his arms. He made sure the tiny body was supported, doing his best to keep the baby warm with the tattered pink blanket still wrapped around its fragile form. The baby's face was streaked with tears, its eyes closed, but its tiny chest rose and fell with each shaky breath. The boy's heart ached for the infant, but he pushed the emotion aside. There was no time to dwell on fear. The baby needed to get out of the building and into the hands of someone who could help. As he walked swiftly through the dark, abandoned corridors, the boy's determination grew. The building's silence seemed louder than ever, and each step felt like it carried the weight of the world. He knew he couldn't carry the baby too far, but he also knew that he couldn't simply leave the infant in a place like that, where no one would be able to help. His eyes scanned the street as he exited the building, looking for someone who could assist him. Thankfully, not far from the entrance, a small shop stood on the corner. The shopkeeper, an older woman with a kind face, was sorting through boxes outside, preparing for closing time. The boy, breathless and desperate, rushed up to her, his eyes wide with urgency. "Please, help! A baby! I found a baby! It's alone!" the boy said, his voice trembling as he held out the infant. The shopkeeper's face changed immediately, from curiosity to concern. Without wasting a second, she motioned for him to come closer. "Come inside, quick," she urged. The boy hurried into the small shop, the shopkeeper following him and locking the door behind them. Inside, she helped him carefully place the baby on the counter, covering the infant with a soft towel she kept nearby for cleaning purposes. She moved quickly, calling the authorities. The phone call to the police was swift but urgent. "I've got an abandoned baby here," the shopkeeper said. "I found this child with a boy who's brought it in. Please send someone now." The boy, standing anxiously by the counter, watched as the shopkeeper worked with purpose. He stayed close to the baby, his small hands trembling as he lightly stroked the infant's tiny arm. He didn't want to leave its side, not even for a second. He didn't know what would happen to the baby, but he knew he had to be there until help arrived. The sound of sirens soon filled the air, growing louder with each passing moment. The boy's heart raced, and he felt a strange mix of relief and uncertainty. He had done his part, but there was no guarantee that the baby would be okay. Moments later, 2 police officers burst into the shop, their eyes immediately scanning the room before settling on the boy and the baby. The officers quickly took over, making sure the baby was in safe hands, checking for any immediate signs of distress, and preparing to transport the infant to the hospital. The boy watched silently, his fingers fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. Though exhausted from the ordeal, he felt a sense of pride wash over him, knowing that he had done everything he could to make sure the baby wasn't left alone in the cold, dark building. As the officers took the baby away, they gave the boy a soft smile, thanking him for his bravery. The shopkeeper, too, offered him an approving glance, but the boy said nothing, his mind still focused on the baby, praying that the infant would be okay. In his young heart, he knew this was only the beginning. The baby's life had been saved, thanks to his quick thinking and determination, and for now, that was all that mattered. As the news spread, whispers of the boy's heroic act began circulating throughout the town. The police and media soon revealed something that stunned everyone. The baby the boy had saved was none other than the missing son of a wealthy and influential millionaire couple. The child had been abducted from their home weeks ago, and, despite the desperate search, no leads had surfaced. It seemed like the case was growing cold, with each passing day only adding to the grief and anxiety that had plagued the millionaire family. The couple, Jonathan and Elizabeth Whitmore, had been beside themselves with worry, their world turned upside down since the abduction of their infant son. They had hired private investigators, contacted the authorities at every level, and even made public pleas for any information regarding the whereabouts of their child. Despite their vast resources, the Whitmores were still just like any other parents in their heartbreak, feeling helpless and alone in their quest to find their son. For weeks, they had searched, exhausted all options, and held out hope that somehow their baby would be found. The missing child was not only their joy, but the light of their lives. Now, the miracle they had been praying for had come in the most unexpected of ways. When the police finally made the connection, the Whitmores were both shocked and relieved. Their son had been found. But it wasn't in the way they had imagined. The boy who had found their son wasn't a detective or even an adult. He was just a young boy, only 6 years old. His actions had saved their world, and the Whitmores knew they had to meet him, thank him, and somehow repay him for the incredible kindness he had shown to their family. At the hospital, the scene was nothing short of emotional. The baby was safe, doctors confirmed, and it seemed that with the right care, he would recover from his ordeal with no lasting harm. Elizabeth stood by her husband, holding tightly to his arm, as the officers led them to where the young hero had been brought. The boy was sitting with his family in the waiting area, trying his best to stay calm, though the nerves were clearly still visible on his face. The shock of his actions had not yet worn off, and the magnitude of what had happened still felt surreal. As he sat in the sterile, quiet hospital room, he thought about the baby, the danger he had faced, and the strange twist of fate that had led him to this point. The Whitmores approached with hesitant steps, their hearts swelling with gratitude and admiration. Jonathan, always a composed figure, looked visibly shaken as he knelt in front of the young boy. Elizabeth, her eyes filled with tears, gently placed a hand on her husband's shoulder as they both tried to find the right words to say. "You," Jonathan said, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved our son. You brought him back to us." His voice cracked as he looked at the young boy, who still held the baby in his arms. The boy met his gaze, shyly nodding, unsure of how to respond. But his eyes told everything. He didn't need any reward. He just wanted to make sure the baby was okay. The millionaire reached forward, placing his hands on the boy's shoulders. "You are our guardian angel," Elizabeth added, her voice quivering with emotion. "Without you, we may never have found him. We are forever indebted to you." The boy's family, who had been sitting nearby, exchanged glances with each other, all of them overwhelmed by the kind words from the Whitmores. The boy looked up at them with wide eyes, feeling a wave of emotion he wasn't sure how to handle. The million-dollar smile of Jonathan Whitmore, his face full of gratitude, made the boy feel like the most important person in the room. But he didn't know how to process the sudden shift from a child just trying to help to a hero with such significant attention. Jonathan continued, "We want to do something for you, something that expresses just how much we appreciate what you've done. You've given us back everything we thought we lost." Elizabeth smiled through her tears. She, too, was lost for words, but her gaze spoke volumes. She felt as though this boy had saved not just their son, but their family as a whole. They had been on the verge of losing everything, and this small act of kindness had changed their world. The boy's parents were hesitant to say anything. They had never expected this kind of recognition for their son. In their eyes, he was simply a child who had done the right thing. But as they exchanged glances, they knew this moment was bigger than anything they could have imagined. Jonathan cleared his throat, still struggling to find the words. As a gesture of our gratitude, we would like to offer you something that can change your life. The boy's family exchanged nervous glances as the billionaire continued. We want to give you a financial gift, a gift that will ensure your future is secure. We also want to help with anything you need for school or for whatever path you wish to follow. The boy looked at them, stunned. I didn't do it for money, he said quietly. I just wanted to help. Jonathan smiled warmly, his voice filled with sincerity. We know, son. But this isn't about repayment. This is about making sure you know how much you mean to us. Your kindness, your bravery. It deserves to be recognized. The boy remained speechless, not knowing how to respond to the gesture, but his parents nodded in gratitude. This wasn't just a moment of reward for their son's bravery. It was a life-changing opportunity that they never expected. As the parents exchanged a few final words of thanks, the boy felt a sense of peace wash over him. What started as an innocent game of hide-and-seek had turned into an extraordinary event that would stay with him and his family for the rest of their lives. And while the recognition and reward were overwhelming, what mattered most was knowing that he had made a difference. His simple act of kindness had brought a family back together. The millionaire, Jonathan Whitmore, couldn't contain his gratitude as he made a decision that would change the course of the young boy's life forever. His expression, filled with both disbelief and deep admiration, never wavered as he realized that this child, who had shown such bravery and compassion, had saved his world. The events of the last few days felt like a whirlwind, but Jonathan knew that he had to do something monumental to express his appreciation. Please, bring your family to our estate tomorrow, Jonathan said, his voice steady but emotional. I want to personally thank you for what you've done. You've given us back our son, and I can never repay that. But I can offer something that may help you and your family. The boy, still sitting quietly beside his parents, looked up at Jonathan, unsure of what to say. His young mind struggled to grasp the gravity of the situation. Just a few days ago, he was playing in a quiet part of the town, never expecting that his actions would lead to such a dramatic turn of events. Now, he was standing at the center of a miracle that had saved a family from the darkest days of their lives. The next day, the boy and his parents arrived at the Whitmore estate, a sprawling mansion surrounded by acres of land. The contrast between their modest home and the luxury of the estate was stark, and the boy couldn't help but feel a little out of place. His parents, however, felt an overwhelming mix of emotions, gratitude, awe, and an undercurrent of disbelief. They never expected their son's small act of kindness to lead to something so extraordinary. The Whitmores greeted them warmly, ushering them into a beautiful, well-decorated living room. The family sat together, and Jonathan wasted no time in expressing his gratitude again. I want you to understand that what your son did has changed our lives. He not only brought our baby back, but he has restored a sense of hope in our hearts. Jonathan began, his voice steady, though still laced with emotion. This house, this life, it's all possible because of him. and we want to give him a future that reflects his incredible act of kindness." The boy's parents exchanged a glance, hesitant yet overwhelmed by the magnitude of what Jonathan was about to offer. Jonathan gestured toward the fireplace, where a large contract was laid out on the table. "I've decided to transfer ownership of a significant portion of my estate to your son. This land, this home, it will be his. He deserves a place where he can grow, learn, and thrive." The boy's eyes widened in disbelief. You want to give me this?" he asked, his voice trembling with uncertainty. Jonathan smiled warmly. "Yes, and it's not just the property. I've set up a trust fund for you, a fund to ensure your education, your future. Whatever you want to do in life, you'll have the resources to make it happen. It's the least we can do for the boy who saved our son." The boy's parents, though speechless, were deeply moved. His mother placed her hand on his shoulder, her eyes filled with tears. "This is too much," she whispered, her voice quivering. The boy, still uncertain, turned to his parents. "But I didn't do it for any of this," he said quietly. "I just wanted to help." Jonathan leaned in, his tone earnest. "And that's why we want to give this to you. You acted without expecting anything in return, but we want you to know that your actions don't go unnoticed. This is our way of honoring your kindness." The boy's father, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "It's a lot for us to take in, but I think you should accept this, son. It's not just a gift. It's a way for the Whitmores to thank you properly." The boy's eyes looked down at the contract, his small hands clutching his lap nervously. He had never imagined his life could change so drastically in such a short amount of time. But as he looked up at Jonathan, who smiled warmly at him, the boy felt a small wave of reassurance. "You've given us more than we could ever repay," Jonathan continued. "But I hope that this can give you the life you deserve. We'll always be here for you." The boy nodded slowly, finally understanding the depth of Jonathan's generosity. "Thank you," he said, his voice soft but filled with gratitude. "I'll do my best to make you proud." The atmosphere in the room lightened as the Whitmores shared smiles and words of encouragement. The boy's parents felt a deep sense of relief and pride as they saw their son beginning to embrace the incredible opportunity before him. This was a turning point, a life-changing moment that would not only affect their future, but also the future of the boy who had shown the world that true kindness can change lives in the most unexpected ways. As the family spent the day at the Whitmore estate, the boy felt the weight of the responsibility settling on his young shoulders. But for now, he was content. His actions had been simple, but their ripple effects were profound. And no matter what the future held, he knew he had made a lasting impact on a family that would forever be grateful. The boy's actions spread like wildfire across social media, capturing the attention of people far beyond his local community. News outlets picked up the story, highlighting his bravery and compassion in the face of such an incredible circumstance. From coast to coast, the story of the tiny hero who saved the life of a millionaire's son resonated with people, inspiring admiration and awe. Headlines across the country called him the boy who saved a life, and praised his ability to remain calm and selfless in the face of a potentially life-threatening situation. People from all walks of life, from politicians to celebrities, took to their platforms to share the story. Social media flooded with messages of support for the boy, with hashtags like #HeroBoy and #SavedByKindness trending worldwide. Parents, teachers, and community leaders highlighted him as a role model, urging young children to emulate his courage and sense of responsibility. In a world often filled with negativity, the boy's act of kindness was a refreshing reminder that there is still goodness in the world. His story ignited conversations about the importance of helping others, especially in moments of crisis. People praised his bravery, calling him a living example of how one small act could ripple out and change everything. But the attention didn't stop there. As the story continued to capture hearts and minds, the boy's life also began to change in ways he could never have imagined. His newfound status as a hero brought with it a platform, an opportunity to make an even bigger difference in the world. Media outlets invited him for interviews, where he spoke humbly about his actions, stressing that he simply did what anyone else should have done. Despite the overwhelming praise, the boy remained grounded, always attributing his actions to his strong moral compass and the lessons his parents had taught him. The millionaire's family, equally moved by the overwhelming response, continued to stay closely involved with the boy and his family. What began as a gesture of gratitude blossomed into a lasting, meaningful relationship. The two families visited each other regularly, exchanging stories, celebrating holidays together, and supporting one another in times of need. The baby, who had grown into a healthy young child, was told stories of the boy who had saved his life. As he grew older, he learned more about the bravery and heroism of the boy who had been there for him during one of the most critical moments of his life. He came to think of him as a part of his family, a bond that extended beyond blood. The connection between the families became a beautiful testament to the power of kindness and unity, and it stood as a reminder to everyone that sometimes the most unlikely heroes come from the most humble places. As the boy's story continued to be shared and celebrated, his legacy as a hero began to live on, serving as an example of selflessness, courage, and the profound impact of doing the right thing when it matters the most. The boy's life, once simple and filled with the innocent joys of childhood, was forever changed by one small yet significant act of bravery. In a world where fear often overshadows hope, his courage served as a beacon of light that illuminated the path to something greater. His decision to help the baby that day not only saved a life, but sparked a series of events that would alter the course of many lives, both his own and those around him. As time passed, the boy grew more accustomed to the newfound attention, but he never let it change him. His humility and selflessness remained at the heart of everything he did. He continued to play, learn, and grow, but now with the understanding that his actions had a greater impact than he could have ever imagined. His simple, kind heart had set off a ripple effect that reached far beyond what anyone could have expected. The millionaire's family, forever indebted to the boy, continued to nurture their relationship with him, ensuring that he was given every opportunity to succeed. Their bond with his family was built on gratitude, love, and mutual respect, and it grew stronger over the years. The boy's story became a source of inspiration for many, reminding people of the power of kindness and the ability each of us has to change the world for the better, no matter our age or circumstances. But the true beauty of the story lay in the ripple effect it created, a ripple that went far beyond the boy and his family. The community surrounding them began to change as well. People saw the value in helping others and began to step up in their own lives, offering support and assistance where they could. The millionaire, deeply moved by the boy's actions, worked tirelessly to give back to the community, ensuring that no one else had to face hardship alone. In the years that followed, the boy became a symbol of hope and resilience. His legacy inspired countless others to act with compassion and courage, and his story was told to generations to come as a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can have monumental consequences. The world around him became a little kinder, a little more generous, and a little more loving because of one boy's selfless decision. As the story closed, it was clear that the boy's impact had transcended any material rewards or recognition. His actions had created something far more powerful, a lasting change in the hearts of those who witnessed it, and a ripple that would continue to spread long after. Through his kindness, he had built not just a connection with a wealthy family, but a lasting legacy of generosity and compassion that would live on for years to come. And, in the end, it wasn't the $1 million or the property that defined him. It was the love and admiration he inspired in everyone he met, leaving behind a world that was just a little bit better than before.